Hi, my name is Sam Fried, and I'm here in particularly this artificial intelligence conference to talk about alternative sources of inspiration for artificial intelligence. AI so far has been based on two sources of inspiration. One is mathematics, as in logic, mathematics, expert systems, anything where you can sort of, when the computer gives you an answer, you can ask it why, and you can get a trace of why it came to that conclusion. And this is logically structured. The other case is biology, like simulating neurons or simulating genetic processes, where the answer to the question, why did you come up with that answer, is that's how it came out. Okay? And of course, AI has also done combinations of these things, such as Bayesian networks and so on. They're quite popular. Okay? Elsewhere, shameless plug for the book, up wherever it is. Elsewhere, I have argued for subjective-based AI using introspection. And there's a separate talk about this book in this conference. Okay? There are more ways that AGI can learn from the humanities, from other sources than mathematics and biology, and that's what this talk is about. Just touching. Okay? Play acting, which is studied in theaters and cinematic studies and so on. Herb Simon, a very important character in AI, came up with the first observed that when humans are in an organization, they're like acting the role of manager or student or whatever. There's play acting going on. Human behavior is never outside of some sort of social context. Even if it's being at home and grumbling about how hard life is, you grumble about how hard life is at home. That's a social context of being alone. Okay, linguistics is well researched in AI, but something which we notice less in AI is music. When you hear a lecture make some point, and you say, does that sound right? That rings true. That reminds me of something. Music. Our thinking involves music. I have very little to say about this, I'm no expert, but there's something there that we should be looking at. Okay? Beyond that, let's look at two or three things more detailed. Okay? In literature, we, in a sense, study the imagination. We study the human cognition, the condition using fiction. So, one of the things is what can be imagined? Which stories would even fly? Like, if you presented a screenplay to someone saying there's going to be a worldwide pandemic, there's going to be race riots, and the crazy president of the United States all at the same time, they'd say that's not imaginable. That's a better screenplay. So reality sometimes defies our conventions. So this whole thing of what can be imagined, and more literally, what can we visualize? View there's reams of literature on this sort of stuff. And, of course, the role of time. In computers, because we are very heavily influenced by mathematics, we like to ignore time. But time and dynamics and sequences of events are of great importance in our human existence and in our human thinking. Okay. Also, in AI, there is a lot of research going on into analogies. Okay? But what we call in literature a metaphor is something much more rich than mere analogy. So again, there's a big field of research there and of knowledge that we in the AI community are ignoring. And it's a pity. If you want general intelligence, you shouldn't be ignoring any source of ideas. Okay, another idea is hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is just a really scary name for the theory of interpretation. It was started in the 19th century when archaeology started becoming a thing, and they came up with new, they were finding new sacred texts from foreign and alien cultures, and they wanted to read them, and the question was, how do you interpret a foreign text? How do you understand, not just a foreign text, but how do you understand anything? So, to cut a long story short, Gadamer's position, and Gadamer was first mentioned in the context of AI by Winograd and Flores in 1986, if I'm not mistaken. In a sense, understanding is the ability to follow along with something. Not to fully understand, but just to sort of follow along with, get a grasp on, and not necessarily have an opinion. So just as an example, I'll give you here this list of sentences. And you will notice that it's very difficult to follow for anyone who's an English speaker. But it gets easier the further down you go, and at the bottom line is the dog is ugly. But all the previous lines say the same thing with different languages and syntax in different ways. Okay? But notice that just looking at this list, we're struggling to see what does it mean? What does it mean? Like, we haven't yet formed an opinion about whether the dog is ugly or isn't ugly. But we're struggling to understand, and what does it mean to understand a text or anything else is, again, the field of hermeneutics, which is deep in the humanities, and AI doesn't seem to touch it much. Okay, so that's what I have to say today. I'll just go back to my shameless plug of my book, and thank you very much.